It's pretty nice, pretty nice. How about... There we go, much better. What's going on, everybody? I'm Dylan from Quest for Nostalgia, where I teach how I do all of my 3D printed movie props and things like that. And in this video, I'm going to teach you exactly how to make your own Bat in the Sun Green Ranger. This helmet is another Jason David Frank helmet where he fought Ryu, and man, this thing is super cool. It's got a wicked design to it. I love the color scheme of this thing, and I think this thing came out fantastic. This one is actually a commission, so this is not my helmet. You're not going to see this on the shelf later on. This one is going out to the customer as soon as I'm done filming this video. This is a hard one to pass up though, because man, this thing is absolutely brilliant. As always, if you want a helmet kit or a commission, reach out to me. I like to do new helmets that I haven't done before, but I can always print 3D printed kits so you can follow along with my tutorials on how to finish your own. The file I got from mollis.pulgus.designs on Instagram, and I know there's other people that have files out there as well. Before we get into the build, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Those things really help me out. We're really growing over here. And remember, we have a giveaway at 5,000 subs, so that really helps. If you subscribe, you can have a chance at winning a Yellow Ranger helmet that is back there hiding behind the Iron Man suit. Let me know in the comments down below what helmets you'd like to see, what's your favorite Ranger helmet that you've seen, maybe that I've already done, or something that you're looking forward to in the future. Some of you may already know my build process for these, how to finish them and sand them, but I like to do it as if this is the first time somebody's ever watched a video from me, because it may be, and I don't want them to have to go watch through a million videos to try to figure out different steps. I try to make it as if it was day one every single time. Let's get into how I finish this helmet. As always, you know I start with the 80 grit. You could use a little detail sander if you want to power sand the big flat open spots like this to get that nice and smooth. But I really like a sponge with 80 grit wrapped around that. And then I rip little shreds of 80 grit to get into the tight details like the teeth and spaces like the mouth as well. After the 80 grit is done, I've been using an acetone and putty mixture. You could use Bondo glazing putty if you want to. I've been using U-Pools glazing putty as well, so I mix half 1-to-1 in a little tuna can, and I mix it up with a little spare brush. I then brush little thin layers over top of the helmet to try to fill in those grooves just a little bit. That way you don't lose detail. I don't want to glop it on like I see some people do. Try to brush it on lightly just to barely let it sink into those little layer lines between the plastic without losing bunches of detail. With that thin layer of putty on the helmet, then it's time to knock it down with the 120 grit, and I sand it just like I did with the 80 grit. Use a sponge with the 120 wrapped around it, and then rip off little strips to get into the nice nooks and crannies of this helmet. The next part is a filler primer of your choice. You could use U-Pool, you could use Rust-Oleum or Duplicolor, whatever you like. Filler primer is filler primer. They all work really well. Don't overthink it. Get whatever is available to you and you're gonna have a great result. Sometimes you may have to use 2 or 3 layers, light layers, as you spray paint that. After the filler primer is completely cured, I look at it and see what spots maybe look a little bit rough. Usually where the print has finished printing has a little bit more layer lines, and I do another mixture of half acetone and half Bondo glazing putty or whatever putty you want to use. This time I mixed it up and did the Bondo, and I touch up those areas that need just a little bit more help after the filler primer. Once the spot putty is nice and cured, I actually then wet sand 3 different grits. I'll go for 220, 320, and 400. I set up a nice bucket in my garage that I fill with water, and then I can submerge the helmet and make sure that my sandpaper is nice and wet, and go through and I just sand the helmet over and over. 220 straight to 320 straight to 400. I've been really loving my finishes so far with the way that this method is. That's actually the same method that I did with my Iron Man suit here, and I'm really liking the results. After the wet sand is done, I like to add the actual buckles here. I have a tutorial on exactly how to add the rivets and do realistic clasps on there, so you can follow that tutorial. It's here on my channel. The clasps are also linked there as well. Then, after the buckles are attached, that's when I prime it, so that way the buckles also have a layer of primer on them to help the color stick to them. I'm just using a flat gray primer. It's a great color to lay down. When you're painting at this step, light coats, on, off, on, off, on, off. I see people spraying and holding and doing things like that. Try to start from the top and then spray down, on, off, on, off, on, off. That way overspray goes down as you go through. If you start low and come high, then you're gonna be constantly having overspray on your helmet. So try to start top, down, light coats, on, off. Next, it's time to lay down the first color, and I actually laid down the gold first because it's the deepest color in the teeth area here. You can use Rust-Oleum's gold. You see that in my White Ranger helmet and the armor there, but I actually used the Vallejo Model Air gold because I really like the way that the Vallejo Model Air is allowing me to tape, and it's not peeling up and ruining things. Sometimes when you tape metallics like that, you run the risk of it peeling up. Make sure it fully cures. But yeah, you can use Rust-Oleum gold, or you can also go for a Vallejo Model Air. I've really been liking that. And even though it's not like the most fancy of gold paint, when you use a nice clear coat, it comes out looking gorgeous. So yeah, don't be afraid to use a Model Air paint and acrylic paint when you use a really nice clear coat. Next, what I've been using is 3M automotive masking tape. I learned that from Third Dimension Builds really early on. It has a really hard grip to it, but it's not a chemical tape, so you're not going to get the etching as much or anything like that. It should be having a chemical reaction with the paints gassing off underneath of it. Let everything cure as well for 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever you can allow it to cure before masking and stuff like that, and you'll end up with a really nice result. After the gold was masked off, then I painted the silver. And again, you can use a silver you've seen where I use for all of the mouths of the Power Rangers here. I use a regular silver from Rust-Oleum, but this time I also went with Vallejo Model Silver. I've been trying to get into airbrushing just a little bit, and I'm liking the results so far. I'm very happy with it. With the silver done, then it's time to mask for the green. So I masked off all the teeth, all the other little thin areas, the pieces by the gem there, and I painted this Meadow Green by Rust-Oleum. That was the next color for this. I love the way Meadow Green comes out on here. It can look different based on different cameras and things like that, but overall, I really think Rust-Oleum's Meadow Green nails the Green Ranger helmet color. When you're painting the green, do multiple layers. This was 2 different layers of green. So do not try to cover it all with paint in that first go. Be very light with it. Go through, like I said, top down, on off, on off, on off, and make sure that you're doing light coats. If you see a spot that looks a little thin, do not try to go back and get it. Just wait, give it 10 minutes and then come back and do another light coat with it. You do not want to get a run because then you're going to have to stop and wet sand it all down, go back to 320 and then start over and repaint. You don't want to have to do that, so just take your time, light coats, and just try not to get a run. Then the last steps for the colors on here were I actually used acrylic paint to just paint the eyes black here, and I just brush painted those by hand. You can use tape to mask off underneath and around it and then brush it on there. I used a matte black, but when you use a very nice gloss, it then turns the eyes nice and glossy as well. So you do not have to worry about using a matte colored paint when you have a good clear coat afterwards. I also painted the top gem here red and using that high gloss to make it nice and shiny. With all the colors done, then it's time for the actual clear coat. I just used Duplicolor 1K clear coat, but I did 3 layers of it. The first layer, I did just a light misting. I mean, very quickly, light mist, light mist, light mist over it, and then I let that sit for 10 minutes. Then I did another layer, and I did a little bit heavier, a little bit longer of a spray, a little bit slower of a pass, and it gave me kind of like a medium coat. And then the last coat, I did just a little bit more, a little bit heavier, and so I did 3 coats of clear coat, and this is the Duplicolor 1K high gloss, and I mean, you can just see these reflections. I mean, it is pretty wild. It's a really good looking finish with just that Duplicolor 1K. So if you apply it correctly, you can get what looks like a 2K clear coat. I let the clear coat cure for like 4 days, honestly. Sometimes it can be tacky for a little while, or it can seem like it's there, but then you can still press into it with your fingers or things like that. So really let your clear coat cure. Don't be in a rush. Try to give it a few days. I didn't touch this thing for, gosh, I think 3 or 4 days, just to really let this thing set up nicely. The more patience you have when letting things cure and things like that, the better your result's gonna end up being. After the paint colors were all done and the clear coat was nice and dry, it was time for the visor for me. And if you've seen my visor tutorial, I do welding masks or I do face shields and I use window tint for those. And you can watch that video and see exactly how I do that as well. But this one I used a welding mask because the Green Ranger helmets often have a very deep visor here, so you're going to need a little bit more width than the face shield. You can also get sheets of PET G, but yeah, I use a welding mask on this one, and I have zero issue getting the visor all the way to the edge. I've had people say like, oh man, I can't really get the visor pressed in there nicely. I can't get it to the rim of the helmet there. My tip for that, is start with the farthest part in there. I really try to focus on pushing the visor in as far as I can and hot gluing and holding juts on the nose and juts on the bridge of the mouth here. And I'll hold that for a while until that's really set in. And I'll keep holding that, and then I'll hot glue a little bit more around. So that way it really locks in this hardest part, this really deep part. Then it's smooth sailing on everything out past that. And another tip for the visors, once you put the water down and you put the window tint on there, leave that for like 2 hours. Don't try to touch it right off the way. Sometimes if you bend the visor with the tint right after you've put it on there, you'll start to get bubbles and things like that. Just give it some time just waiting it out, and you'll get a really nice result. Usually you see me do elastic here at the top, but goodness, this file, the helmet is so snug with these back plates here that I don't need any bit at all to have this hold it. I mean, it holds itself there, and when you latch this thing, it is snug as a bug in a rug. Oh my goodness. This one may be my favorite feeling of wearing this helmet. It needs no elastic. It looks really nice. It's not going to bonk into the top of these when you open and close. You'll see you'll get wear and tear usually on your helmet. Without having that, this looks so nice, and it works really, really well. This thing feels so snug. I honestly think I could do a back handspring in this thing. If it was my helmet, I might give it a try. Hopefully the person who ordered this as their commission really loves it and enjoys it. I loved making it. I think it came out super cool, and I hope they're very, very happy with this thing. Yeah, let me know in the comments below. Like I said, what's your favorite Ranger? What helmet are you looking forward to me making? And yeah, if you got commissions and it's a helmet that I haven't done yet, it's more likely for me to take that commission as well to do those. But yeah, I'm excited to ship this out. Definitely more and more sad each day to see this thing leave my collection. It looks so nice up on the shelf, but I've got to let it go. Got to let it go there. And as I'm actually probably going to be selling some of my own personal collection here to make some other new helmets. So if there's a green, white, blue, black, any of those ones, if you're looking for a helmet and you're in the United States, hit me up. I'm actually thinking about selling those. As always, if you've made it to the end of the video, you guys are the backbone of the channel. Your support means everything to me. All my Ranger fans and Ranger family, all you guys are so fantastic. Thank you for supporting and getting me to where I am. Stay tuned for how I did the Iron Man suit. I mean, you guys can see it. It's fully finished. I've worn it to a con. It's been fantastic. But I love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.